What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's Aaron X, and I'm back to discuss Impact Wrestling on the Wrestle Plug YouTube. Oh yeah, boob tube, YouTube, not entirely sure. Definitely a boob tube if we're talking about me, let's be honest. Anyway, enough about my massive memories. Wrestling, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, man, Impact Wrestling. It's been on a great roll lately, actually. I've been really impressed. Now, do I think this was a blockbuster episode and one of the best ones I've ever seen? No, I'm not one of these idiot fans who's like, I can't believe this week's Dynamite was the best Dynamite yet. And they say this every week. And you think, please get some new material. Same with that Forbidden Door shit. Can't be doing with that. This episode of Impact on Access TV opened with a certifiable Match of the Year candidate. So our boy and my man crush, Josh Alexander, challenged TJP right out the gate after no surrender for the X Division Championship. Mwah. This match had everything you wanted. This really felt like a big matchup. Two highly capable, world-class technical wrestlers at the peak of their abilities right now as well. For me, I don't want to say that TJP and Josh Alexander are underrated, because that would insinuate that people don't recognise how talented they are. We all recognise that. I think, if anything, they're underexposed. And in some ways that can be good, because it means that they're not just being hammered at you all the time on TV. But it does frustrate me a little bit that even though Josh Alexander is one half of the longest reigning tag team champions of all time, even though TJP is so world-renowned, well-travelled, trained in NJPW, the Inoki Dojo, and all this kind of stuff, they just kind of feel like, because they're in Impact, whatever, they're those guys from TNA. And that's fucking bullshit, let's be honest. This match was world class. If you had this on any pay-per-view for any company, people would be losing their minds. But because it was on an episode of Impact, it'll go very much under the radar. And it's a bit of a weird thing, because being an Impact Wrestling fan right now almost feels a little bit like being the fan of the cult-followed rock band that isn't necessarily mainstream. You know what I mean? For instance, a good example, I used to love Part of the Mud, right? Big fan of them. Loved that new metal era for the early 2000s. Yes, I know I'm a sweaty edgelord, but hey, I'm in my mid-30s now. What do you expect? And you know, when I first sort of heard about them, they were fairly underground. They certainly weren't popular in the United Kingdom. And so when I got their first album, I was like, oh, you know, this is pretty sick. And it just felt like you were a part of something special. Even though you wanted the world to know about it, you kind of took pride in the fact that you were one of the fewer who knew about the product. And that's the case with Impact Wrestling. And that's why all of us now are going to be on the internet telling the world about TJP versus Josh Alexander. Not enough people have seen this match, and if you're watching this and you're not necessarily following Impact on a regular, find this match, search it out. It's 10-12 minutes of your time. It is jaw-droppingly excellent. It's world class. It's two guys who not only know how to work so beautifully, but they sell, and everything meant something. You know, the high-impact nature of Josh Alexander and the real, gritty, ground-and-pound, walking weapon mentality that he brings to the ring against TJP, who's also very technical but very smooth, also has that incredible athletic background. Not to say that Josh Alexander can't fly if needs be, but, you know, he's the big powerhouse. And this works so beautifully because it was two magnificent face wrestlers going after each other. I had so much time for it. I thought it was magnificent. It was an absolute A+ of a match. It really was. If it had been on pay-per-view, if it had a bit longer, it most definitely would have been 5 stars for me. I'm running out of superlatives to describe how magnificent Josh Alexander is. And if you've been paying attention to everything that's been going on our podcast, you'll know that Josh Alexander is something that we are going to be looking at a little bit closer in the near future. But ultimately, it's a great match. I honestly thought Josh Alexander was going to capture the X Division Championship. They made such a big deal about him winning that revolver match at No Surrender. But it's TJP that comes out on top, hits that gorgeous frog splash. Not taking anything away from either man, though. Magnificent. Can't wait to see them tear it up again. Now, obviously, backstage, we got a glimpse of who might necessarily be the next guy. It does seem a bit weird, because the idea is TJP's kind of like the cool face, you know. He reminds me of the cool guy from Greece, or the Fonz, you know, he's got his feet up on the table. Yeah, he's pretty chill, whatever, the X Division title's there, whatever. Ace Austin comes bursting into the room and goes, what the fuck, Scott D'Amore? I won the X Cup, I can't even get an X Division title shot, what the fuck is that all about? And Scott D'Amore's like, tell you what I'll do, I'll put you in a 6-man tag team match, and then the winner of that match the following week will be in a triple threat match, and the winner of that triple threat match will get a shot at TJP. And I'm like, convoluted much? Too much for me, way too much. And also for me, it made Ace Austin come across a little bit like a face, because he's like, cool, I'll jump for all your hoops, but I still believe that when it comes down to it, I'm going to be the one who gets the win and challenges for that. Also, Scott D'Amore getting pissy about Ace Austin having his feet up on the table. Chill out, old man. Whatever, is what it is. That didn't hit as well for me, but hey, not everything is going to hit as well as you would like. Now, obviously, the other big talking point from this show is the fact that FINJUICE, made their debut. Now, everybody knows I love Juice Robinson. I've been showing off the fact I've met him and got a chance to get my hands on that glorious, gorgeous red belt. At the time, he was the IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion. Here he is, tagging up with his boy, David Finlay. Some people might recognise this young lad, of course, as the son of the legendary Fit Finlay. And they took on Reno Scum, who we haven't seen for a while. And because of that, I appreciated so much more the fact that they're on my TV. Reno Scum can really work. And the fact that they were afforded the opportunity to face FINJUICE first, even though they were kind of sent out there to be the exhibition jobbers, and this match only went about 4.5 minutes, that's not the point. The fact that they were given the opportunity first is fantastic. I love that. I thought it was great. And I really enjoyed the match as well. Obviously, Juice Robinson and Finlay have come a long way from, the early days when they were kind of the young boys. But I thought this match was great. It was physical, hard-hitting. But the really funny thing is, Juice Robinson and Finlay, they're used to having to go out there and work 20, 30-minute tag matches on the regular almost every night. Such is the way that Japanese wrestling is presented. And here they are doing a 4-minute match. They must have thought, God, we're quids in here, baby. Easy money, swing daddy. Yeah, easy money. And a very, very effective performance. But I can do without hearing the fucking Forbidden Door nonsense. By the way, I don't watch the Tony Schiavone, Tony Khan stuff, but as soon as they came up on my screen, it just kind of triggered a little thing in my head, and I thought, you kind of have to sign a register if you walk around acting like that in Britain. I'm just saying, lads, state of your fucking attire. It's actually quite embarrassing. But I'll tell you what isn't embarrassing. Impact Wrestling in general. It was just a good show. It was easy to watch. Tenille Dashwood versus Nevaeh. Finally, Tenille Dashwood gets a win. They're teasing the split between Nevaeh and Havoc. That's kind of disappointing. Nevaeh feels sorry for herself, feels like she's the weak link. She doesn't want Havoc out there because she wants to be able to prove to herself that she can do it by herself. She goes out there, has a pretty good match actually with Tenille Dashwood. It was nice to see Tenille Dashwood win. I cannot agree with anyone online. I've seen a lot of people online saying that this gimmick's better than when she was Emmalina or Emma or whatever you want to call her in WWE. I totally disagree. I think she's woefully underutilized. I think they play way too hard on this dumb influencer gimmick. And I think that hanging around with Caleb with a K, I just think, there's no doubt that he's obviously got a certain degree of potential and a certain degree of talent. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in the company. I just think that it's not a very good fit, and I actually think that he kind of drags her down a little bit. I've got no time for this catty, cheap, homeless version of Kim Kardashian. I really don't. I think it just speaks very poorly to the current state of, modern... I get that's the point. I get that the idea of this gimmick is that, she's one of these modern millennial idiots. For me, I just feel like Tenille Dashwood has a lot more to offer than plucky idiot who takes a lot of selfies and acts like an Instagram tart, for lack of a better term. But Nevaeh, unfortunately, has to take the loss again, and you do worry, because I really like Havoc and Nevaeh, and without them, who the fuck are you gonna have to face Fire and Flavor? There are no women's tag teams available, unless you want to start repurposing people, so... But it was nice to see that the women were afforded an opportunity to wrestle on this show, and that's always good. They're very consistent about allowing women plenty of time to get their shit in, not just some throwaway 5-minute segment that nobody cares about. Looking at you again, Tony Khan, dressed like an iconic individual from the 70s. I'll leave that one to your imagination, ladies and gentlemen. Some really good stuff as well in between. Love that Fatal 4-Way match, by the way, kind of like an X Division showcase. Trey Miguel once again picks up the win. That kid is looking fresh. He's so shredded. He's obviously put in time. He looks magnificent. And of course, after he picks up the win, he goes backstage. And we get this great continuation of his rivalry with Sami Callihan. Something that I'm actually really enjoying and really starting to get my teeth into. Sami Callihan kind of standing there behind him. I like the fact that they never locked eyes at all. Trey Miguel constantly looking forward. Nice little metaphor there. And Sami Callihan's trying to goad him, saying, oh, you haven't got passion. You know, when it gets difficult, when it means something, you can't win. You just run away. You tuck your tail between your legs. You're a failure, Trey. And Trey's, you can see the emotion. Actually, his acting is really good for a guy who, let's be honest, I don't feel like Trey Miguel has set his stall out as a entertainment style wrestler, and yet now we're starting to see some great shades of his character, different shades of grey, so to speak. And Trey Miguel and his facial expressions, it all just worked really well for me, and I'm actually very excited, and I'm hoping this is going to be long term, and we're going to build to eventually an incredibly violent conflict between Sami Callihan and Trey Miguel. Now, before I talk about the main event, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Swingman Daddy. I love Johnny Swinger. Some of the segments can be hit and miss, though. And over the last couple of weeks, particularly the Fala Bar stuff, I just think, oh, Jesus Christ. Now, Johnny Swinger is really funny, okay? I've got nothing wrong with him. I love his character. He's a proper carny throwback. Using terms like Briz arcs and just anything that ends with arc and mark. And I just think it's quite funny. It works for me. They had this weird kind of crossover thing because, you know... So Rohit Raju is at a bar with Mahabali Shira. Sorry, it's late. Cut me some slack. It's like 4 a.m. But ultimately, he kind of accuses Mahabali Shira. Mahabali Shira decides, fuck you, I'm going to stroll off because I'm massive compared to you. Then all of a sudden, randomly, of course, James Storm's at the bar, and James Storm's there with Chris Sabin. They're having a cheeky drink. It becomes a bit of a murky situation. You think they're going to square up. And then Johnny Swinger comes out of nowhere and goes, yo, come to Swinger's Palace, daddy. And I'm just like, okay. And then they go back to Swinger's Palace, and it's just a room with a board and a fucking table, and poor Johnny Bravo. Wow, you've come a long way from being shot. What was Johnny Bravo's reward for being shot? Essentially being a slave at Swinger's Palace. I hope he gets a working wage, because that's just awkward otherwise. And poor old Alicia Edwards. Well, I could support my husband, but I'm kind of busy trying to help out all these jobbers. And then James Storm and Chris Sabin tip up. They're loving it. Fala Bar comes bursting in with the $10 he got from Hernandez earlier, who also, by the way, failed to beat Matt Cardona. That is a rivalry I don't care about at all. This Brian Myers versus Matt Cardona shit, I couldn't give a shit. 2 recycled WWE talents. Sorry, lads. I like Matt Cardona. I like Brian Myers. I think they're both excellent workers. But I don't have time for this. I really don't. But the Swingers Palace thing, it was funny. Thought it was. Fala Bar gets booted out. And Chris Sabin and James Storm seem really happy about it. No idea what James Storm was doing with that rap, by the way. Now, the main event. Yeah, it's alright. Tommy Dreamer challenges Moose. Now, as everybody knows, I love Moose. I think he has such incredible potential to be a huge, mega heavyweight champion. Of course, he's going to be eventually. We're clearly building team, challenging Rich Swann, capturing both belts. I think it's fantastic. Tommy Dreamer's got a bit of a stick up his arse, obviously, because of what happened at the end of No Surrender with Moose interjecting himself in such a beautiful moment. D'Lo Brown, by the way, sold it so well. He's like, damn you, Moose! Damn you all to hell! I could just see D'Lo Brown go, no! Just like proper, very much like Tommy Dreamer actually when Johnny Bravo got shot. But this was classic hardcore fare. Tommy Dreamer's 50. But this is the problem, right? I don't want to see Tommy Dreamer with a chair wrapped around his head being rammed into the post. Especially by Moose, a huge specimen like that. Man, I love Tommy Dreamer, and I thought his match with Rich Swann was pretty shitty, if I'm being honest. I thought it was slow and boring and a bit dull, and showed that he is past his prime. And there's no shame in that, because he's 50 years old. And he certainly ain't no Minoru Suzuki. Still tends to present himself better than Chris Jericho does at the moment, though. So, credit to you there. Tommy Dreamer showing some other people in AEW how you can age a little bit more gracefully. That being said, though, like I said, like I just don't want to see it anymore. Moose was great in this match, by the way. There was a little moment where he kind of sauntered off with the tray after he hit Tommy Dreamer, just like kicked it, gave it the old Sheen Snitsky treatment, boom, and I was like, that's quite funny. But ultimately, a lot of this was kind of a rehash of their match at Slammiversary, I believe it was, when they had an old school rules match. Just fucking call it a hardcore match or no DQ, but the majority of this match was just a beatdown, and I don't need to see it. I just don't. Somebody give Tommy Dreamer a break, the poor soul. Ultimately, it's Moose that comes out on top, and then that's it. No Rich Swann, no interference, just Moose with a big old spear and a win. It took Moose an age to put Tommy Dreamer away, and I hate to be that guy, but there was a point where I just thought, come on, mate, you're this monster, and Tommy Dreamer's this old man, and then, you know, even called him a fat piece of garbage, an old fat piece of garbage or whatever, during the match, and then Tommy Dreamer got a handful of the old moose nuts, which is just, well, I suppose it is fair game in an old school rules match, but still. If I had one critique actually of this show, they should have flipped it around and they should have had the TJP and Josh Alexander X Division title match in the show, particularly if you weren't going to have any major repercussion or storytelling angle that came at the end of that match. So, yeah, but that was it from Impact, and I'd like to know what you guys think. I know you guys watch Impact Wrestling. I know you guys, especially shout out to my wonderful friend Nails. She's such a beauty, bless her heart, and I know she watches it vehemently and passionately, and I'm always grateful for everybody who interacts with the show. My apologies, we've been a bit sluggish with the content this week, combination of illness and also a few technical difficulties, unfortunately. The old warhorse that is the laptop that I do all the editing on is ever so slowly dying a very slow death. Some might say it's the Tommy Dreamer of editing. It still gets the job done, but my lord, it takes forever. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed this content, and I've got a lot more coming, including something very special this Sunday. And like I say, if you've been paying attention to the channel, you might have seen a little video, and if you haven't, go over and watch it right now. Option C, yes please. But for myself, Aaron Nix, thank you very much for watching, and we'll catch you very soon for more content from the Wrestle Blog.